Okay, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm here with a guest who is new to the podcast and relatively new to me as far as your solo music goes. But I get the impression you've been around for a while, playing in various projects and making music in Winnipeg. So I think the best way to start this off really is if you want to introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what you do as an artist.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Elliot Feeling. I have been playing music in Winnipeg for, yeah, like a couple of decades, I guess now. And really, like I started in classical music, so I went did my bachelor at the U of M, and played in a band called the Lonely Vulcans
Yeah, that's
in
awesome. I
the
love that band.
yeah, yeah, they're really fun. And we actually got together the end of last year to do a sort of a reunion show. And we might be recording at some point again
Cool.
soon. But yeah, so and I've played in a couple other bands, like other people's bands, but I've sort of always had, not always, but like over the last, let's say 10 years or so, I've had this songwriting thing on the side. And making this album was kind of my first step, of doing my own music kind of as a thing for myself. So that's where I'm at right now, is that I'm releasing my first EP next month.
Well, that's kind of an interesting place to be in that you've been doing this for as long as you have, and now finally this music is coming out. Have you always been writing? Like, has writing always been something you've done, sort of just throughout the various projects you've been involved in, like writing for yourself? I
Um,
mean,
yeah, I've considered myself a very non-prolific songwriter. And I think that that's how I've struggled with that identity a little bit too, is like, am I really a songwriter if I'm not really writing very much? Um, so yeah, it's something that's definitely come and gone over time. And there's definitely been periods where it's like, oh, I was, writing a lot of songs during this time. And I think especially during the pandemic, and a lot of my songs actually came out of both the like feelings of isolation around the pandemic, and then just the having, more time and
yeah,
just spending more time alone and more time at the piano, just kind of naturally uh yeah, just naturally contributed to actually a few of the songs on the album.
is that you mentioned right off the top that you have that classical background,
Hmm.
and listening to some of your stuff, it seems like there definitely are hints of that come through in your songs now. How does that affect? I mean, I guess before we even get into that, how do you define the kind of music you play? Because I mean, it's the question that everyone hates answering, because there's so
Yeah,
many
it's
different
hard.
ways you can answer it, and a lot of people don't really have an easy, closed notes version. But before we even get into
Hmm.
that classical background and all that, what do you call it? Like, how do you define what you do?
I mean, I always want other people to answer that question. I feel like in a few months I'm going to ask my friends, okay, like how would you define my music? And I feel a lot of the style of my new album really came from having it done at House of Wonder, with Adam Fur. Turned my kind of like basic piano singer songwriter moments into these like lush soundscapes that sound almost like, yeah, almost like, I don't know, folk pop or something. I would consider it like singer-songwriter as a genre, but it's much richer than that in the way that it comes out, like the way that it sounds.
Yeah, yeah. And that the House of Wonders thing is interesting too, because I think that they do have that studio from all the different projects that have gone through there. There is a sound. There's something about that House of Wonders that I don't know what it is, but there's a vibe that kind of is present across all of the projects that have gone been released.
Yeah. Well, I really liked his what he has an ad that goes up on Instagram, and it says something about turning a good song into a good recording,
Yeah,
and about how like he wants to be present for that process. And that was really appealing to me as someone who had never put my own music into the studio before. I really wanted to have that sort of like extra help and like extra arranging, which he really provided really beautifully. So yeah, I think again, yeah, a lot of that sound comes from him, and I would just consider myself kind of a, like piano singer songwriter. I don't know.
Okay, well, so then to go back to what I was going to ask, as a piano singer songwriter, if that's what we're going to call it, how does that kind of more formal background translate to writing songs that are a lot more maybe pop oriented, or maybe more less what's the word for it? Maybe less complex, in the sense that you're playing something classical.
Yeah.
It's very very um there's a lot going on, right? And whereas a folk song or a singer
Yeah.
songwriter song, you can have a lot happening, but at the core of it, it's a fairly simple, structured piece of music.
Hmm. I'm not sure how to answer that, because I feel like I've had to try to let go of a lot of my classical background in order to be able to write. And in fact, a lot of my journey as a singer-songwriter, like I learned how to play the guitar about 10 years ago ish. That might be wrong. 15, not sure. And that was partially because it was like I found out playing guitar where I didn't really know what I was doing. It was like, oh, I only know 6 chords, and I'm kind of like, I don't have the sort of the voice in my head of theory being like, well, this chord should go to this chord. I was just kind of like making it up. And on piano, sometimes it's hard for the moment and try and create something beautiful. So yeah, I'm looking over at my piano, which is over here. I'm like trying to be like, how did that happen? I don't actually know.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. Do you still write on piano? Is that, or has guitar kind of become the main instrument that you write on?
It's kind of both. Yeah, and like I said, I'm not very prolific. So it's when I can get a song, it's always like, hallelujah, we did it, we got one. Um I'm finding for the more proficient, I'm definitely am more proficient on piano because I've been doing it for most of my life.
Of course,
Uh,
yeah.
so I think that's part of the reason that I wanted this my first EP to be on piano as well, is because it really is where I am more confident, like where I actually can shine a little more. So choosing the songs for the EP, it was kind of like, I think maybe not even consciously, but just kind of wanting to like put the best part of myself forward. It's like let's pick like the kind of what I consider maybe my most polished or most um yeah, presentable songs, and they all just happen to be on piano, I think, because that's where I am the most polished. So who knows where the next album is going to go.
Well, that definitely makes sense. Now that you have this album that's coming out, I mean, at the time we're recording this, it's I guess a few weeks away from being released.
Mhm.
What's sort of the plan going forward? Are you fully launching into this now, this as a solo artist, and is this project kind of like in full go mode, or will people be waiting another 10 years or 15 years before the next one?
That's wonderful, and I have no idea. It's funny. I feel like uh I've never had a super clear understanding of my own goals, but I feel something I was thinking about earlier today when I was thinking about doing this interview. I was thinking about the cycle of creating, and how I think sometimes, or I know for myself, I've got stuck in the like, okay, I've created something. And especially in music, it's not like a painting where you create it and then you have to put it somewhere, like you can create a song and it can be an amazing song and no one can hear it. Or, you can have like 40 people like it on Instagram and that's it. Like it's very ephemeral in that way. And I think that I've gotten stuck in that part of the cycle where it's like, okay, I've created something, now what do I do with it?
Yeah,
So my feeling is that now that I've like actually gone through the rest of the cycle, which is, do the recording and now all of this self-promotion stuff, which is not the stuff that I'm very used to doing or very good at. It feels like once all of that is done and it's actually out in the world, then it'll be like, oh, okay, what's next? And then I'm looking forward to going back and doing some more songwriting like in the winter time. And yeah, I'm not sure. That doesn't really answer your question because I don't really know what the future of Elliot Feeling is going to be. I know that putting together a band for the show that I'm doing has just felt so good. It's felt so like it's just been such a rewarding experience for me as someone who's never put together a band to play my own music before.
Yeah. That was sort of
So
what my next
that's
question was going to be anyway,
yeah.
actually, is that how does this work live? So yeah, who
Yeah.
did you find, and how did you sort of determine what you wanted for a live band?
Yeah. Well, we're still putting it together, but so one of the people I'm very excited to have in my band is Joanna Miller, and is she's always been kind of like my favorite drummer in Winnipeg. She does excuse me, the Big Dave McLean Blues Jam at Times Change. So I've been watching her play for like life, and she's just the coolest. And I just happened to ask her to do percussion for my album, and she said yes, which was amazing.
Cool.
And then she said, yeah, if I can make the gig, I'll do it. And so that was just, yeah, that's just been such a treat to be able to have her on board. Ryan Menard, who's also a longtime blues jam person, is like the cornerstone of my band right now. He's the one who's been able to practice the most. So that's been great. I got my friend Harry Buss, who is rock scene. So he's just, super proficient
Yeah.
musician. And I asked Nathaniel Felicitas, who is a cellist with Cantor Dust and
And has
a
played on
bunch of
everyone's
other
records.
projects, I think. And yeah, she's very cool, and she agreed to play
Yeah.
with me. So, and who am I forgetting? Oh yeah, and then oh. See, I knew I needed to write all of these names down, and now I'm blanking on it because and then my friend Roger, who plays saxophone in a whole bunch of other bands, is also gonna jump on a few tracks. So yeah, so the band it's coming together. It feels really good.
How different are the songs when you have the full band, when you're working on them for this show versus kind of how they were when you originally put them together?
Oh, so different. I mean, I'm so used to just sitting at the piano and playing and singing by myself.
Yeah.
And even in the process of recording, Adam had a nightmare with me because I just don't play in time. I'm a pretty okay musician, but for some reason, it's like you're only playing with yourself. You only have to keep your own time.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely a challenge and a journey. And honestly, it's still ongoing. So I have no idea. I have an idea, but it's the final result of the band happening in like 3.5 weeks, I think, is gonna it's
Well, how do people hear this band? I mean, it's going to be, like you said, from the time we're recording this, it's a few weeks away. What are the details of the release?
Yes, sure. It's November 18th at XQ's. And we have Bicycle Face and Mulligrub opening up, which is very exciting as they're both made up of dear friends. Yeah, and they're really great bands. So yeah, it's $15. It starts at 8 p.m. And yeah, I'd love it if people could come. That would be so sweet.
And is that the same day that the record comes out as well?
Actually, so I'm releasing the single Friday, October 27th. So
Okay.
this Friday as we record. And then I'm gonna release the album the week before. So the Submariner comes out November 10th on all of the streaming platforms.
Are you putting out physical copies as well, or just streaming for this one?
No, just streaming, but I am gonna have some physical things because I like physical things. So I made a lyrics booklet that is it's all collaged actually
Oh, cool.
out of photos that I've taken. So those will be available, and I'm gonna get some stickers as well. But
Awesome.
yeah, no physical things, no physical CDs or
Is that
records.
just because this is your first kind of attempt at doing this, and you want to see how it goes, or are you just do you prefer the digital only format?
I don't know. I know that I don't actually buy physical items and like physical CDs and records. Um, and so yeah, I'm not married to not doing it, and I know like there's some beautiful albums that are coming out, and it would be very cool, to have like a, artwork on a
Yeah,
record at some point. But I know that the timeline for getting vinyl pressed is very difficult to work with, and so it just seemed like, yeah, for this one it would just keep it simpler to just do the digital online release, which honestly is enough work
yeah, yeah, for
as it
sure.
is.
Yeah, well, because you're not just the creative person. You have to be doing all of the promotional stuff, like you mentioned earlier too. There's a whole other
Yeah.
side of it that I think it's one of the good and bad things about the sort of the bar has been lowered where everyone can put out their own music, which is great. But then everyone also has to take on all these other roles that maybe 15 years ago wouldn't have been the case. But now it's kind of you got to learn all of this stuff and do it all at once.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's not everybody's skill set. So
For sure,
maybe
yeah,
one
yeah,
day I'll be able to hire someone to do it for me, but at this point I'm just, I've given myself permission to not do all of this perfectly, which I think is very important in all of this work. It's just enough. It's enough to just do it, do what you can, and the rest is it's just fine.
Well, that maybe brings up another question: is with everyone and their dog releasing albums online, and the availability to do so is it's so convenient and not easy, but not as hard as as hard as it was. How do you
Mm-hmm.
get yourself heard? Like out of all of this mess of everyone is releasing music 24/7. There's new albums coming out from everyone all around the world. Do you have
Mm-hmm.
sort of a plan on how to get heard? I mean, obviously people know you, people you've played in bands with, people who've seen your other projects, they've been listening to your music, your friends, your family, everything like that. Those people
Yeah.
will for sure check it out. But how does one? I mean, I haven't been in a band in like 15 years, and I'm kind of glad because I see stuff like this, and it's like I don't know how I would do it either. To
Yeah,
get music out
totally.
there,
Yeah, no, I wish you could tell me.
I no one ever knows the answer to that.
Yeah, I have no idea. And at the end of the day, I think it's like everything else. You never know who it's going to reach, and maybe it'll end up on a playlist and someone will hear it and have a connection to it. And I always feel like the personal, interpersonal connections I have in Winnipeg in particular, because Winnipeg is such a rich music scene,
It is.
those are so much more meaningful anyway than, kind of just like picking up something online. I'm very old school in that way. I'm very much like um I yeah, I think that it's enough, at least at this point in my quote unquote career. It feels like enough to just put something out and have even people that I know listen to it, because after playing kind of open mics here and there and playing in other people's bands, again, this is the first time that people are going to hear something that's like, oh wow, Elliot did that, like I
Yeah.
created something whole for the first time. So that it means a lot to me that it's people that I know, and who knows,
Well, then you're gonna get the best
might
feedback probably from people
get
you know
picked
anyway,
up
right?
by something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
if people are hearing about you for the first time on this show, what's the best way for them to kind of follow what you're up to as far as
Mm.
potential upcoming shows or new music being released, things like that?
Yeah, mostly Instagram. I also have started an email list for aren't on Instagram, because I know there's a few of them. So if people want to email me at elliot.feeling@gmail.com. So Elliot spelled Elliot. That is basically those two ways. Yeah.
Cool. Cool.
I'm
And
on
then
Facebook too, just newly, but it's I don't even know how to use Facebook, so it's
awesome.
terrible.